China diverges from Iran and reinforces Brics trade logic amid Middle East crisis. The escalation of the conflict between Israel and Iran in June 2025, with Israeli strikes on Iranian nuclear and military facilities, followed by retaliatory missile strikes from Tehran, highlights potential profound reconfigurations in global trade alliances. In particular, the impact is focused on the relationship between China, Iran, and emerging trading blocs such as the Brics. China, which accounts for about 13% of Iran's oil imports in 2025, has adopted a cautious stance. Despite the historic Iran-China energy partnership and the 25-year strategic agreement signed in 2021, the recent attacks have exposed hesitations. Beijing, instead of publicly reinforcing support for Tehran or severely condemning Israel, has made diplomatic calls for restraint. This distancing demonstrates that, at the slightest sign of escalation that threatens its economy, especially with the possibility of closing the Strait of Hormuz, China prioritizes the stability of its imports and the security of global trade. This stance opens the way for a strategic reallocation of Chinese purchases, which could focus on other OPEC+ members, such as Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates and Russia, as well as suppliers outside the Middle East, diversifying energy sources. This movement tends to strengthen alliances within the Brics, consolidating the bloc as an alternative to Western-led energy markets. At the same time, the weakening of Iran, with its economy collapsing and under increasingly severe sanctions, could lead it to deepen its economic and military dependence on Russia and China. The strategic treaty of January 2025 between Iran and Russia, with a duration of 20 years and including political, military, and energy cooperation, reinforces this trend. However, the current Chinese reaction reveals the limits of this alignment. Although China and Russia seek to contain U.S. influence in the Middle East, the moderate diplomatic response, without direct military support for Tehran, shows that this so-called alliance is more pragmatic than ideological. Beijing, in particular, avoids any involvement that could compromise its global trade expansion project, known as Belt and Road, or restrict its strategic freedom vis-a-vis the West. In short, the conflict between Israel and Iran could accelerate important trade adjustments. China is likely to reduce its direct purchases of Iranian oil and strengthen ties with other major suppliers, in addition to deepening partnerships within the Brics. On the other hand, Iran, under pressure and isolated, will have to seek even more support from Russia and China to survive politically and economically, although it cannot count on full or unrestricted involvement from these partners. The balance between strategic dependence and the need to preserve diplomatic autonomy will be decisive in defining the new map of global trade alliances in the coming years.